Hello crafty friends. Today's scrapbook layout is a digital kit that I printed out on my home printer from a digital store called Sweet Shoppe, and I will leave the link below for this digital kit. I printed the papers on legal size cardstock that I bought on Amazon. So they are 14 inches long, which gives me a full length of a 12 by 12 scrapbook page. I just picked out a couple papers that I like. There's a bunch more in the kit. And then I also picked out a bunch of ephemera that I printed out on cardstock and then fussy cut them out. So when I was printing the papers out, I had a layout in mind already, so I didn't print out full pages of each paper. I actually combined them because I knew I only wanted some strips, but you could print out a whole legal size paper and have scraps. With my printer, I always have a little bit of a border, so I have to cut that out before I start doing my measurements. But it's okay because I still have plenty of room even with the border because it's actually 14 inches long instead of 12. So I'm just trimming it up, and I decided I knew that that dark green was going to be a strip kind of like washi tape, so that I needed a thin piece of. So I'm just lining that up and deciding how thin do I want it. And I end up going actually for, I think, this smaller piece. And then this piece is 10.5 by 6 inches. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with the blue numbers. I just knew I wanted to tuck them in. So I printed it out so I had that option. But the tennis balls, I wanted to go completely across. So I cut that down to 12 inches by 4. And I kept the blue. I think I cut the blue in half eventually. But I kept the blue just so I have the option when I start assembling my page. So now I'm just sort of going with the idea that I had in my head, or kind of like a band design. Sometimes when I do a layout, I look at a sketch and I follow it close. Other times I just get an idea of one or two areas and then I do the rest kind of out of my head, which is what I did with this one. I just looked at a bunch of sketches and then closed the book and then just played around with the papers that I had, tucking them in and seeing where I wanted to put them. I kept telling myself these are digital papers and digital ephemera, so if I cut it and I decide that I messed it up and I need to print it out again, it's not that big of a deal at all. So to just kind of do with what I was thinking, which I'm not as good at when it's paper that I've bought and I don't have any more of. So using digital paper kind of helps my confidence because I don't second guess myself. Next, I decided to pick a color out of my Simon Says Stamp inks and add some stenciling to the white background in the corners. And here I'm just looking for the right color. I had picked the swatch out of my swatch book, and I went with sort of the theme of tennis balls, and I had this stencil that I actually made on my Cricut, so I figured this was a good time to use it. And I'm just using my brushes. I didn't want it to be like a solid stamp. I wanted it to be, or stencil. I wanted it to be just kind of like a messy background. So I'm just kind of, that's why I didn't tape it down, because I didn't really care if it moved much. And I wanted it to have like darker spots and lighter spots. So I'm just kind of playing around with it. And I saw there that you can't even see it. It needs to be way more in the corners. So I'm just messing around because it's just white paper, right? And it's not even real thick, expensive paper. It's just a pack of 12 by 12 from, I think, Hobby Lobby. It's kind of thin, but when you layer stuff on top of it, I mean, it is still cardstock. It's not like paper thin, but you wouldn't want to do much more than just stenciling on it. But it, again, gives me confidence if I mess it up that It's not a big deal. Of course, there is always the other side, but if you really mess it up and you have to throw it in the garbage, it's not like a foundations paper that's from Vicky Boutin. That's kind of expensive-ish. So after I was looking at this, I decided it was too perfect, even though it's not perfect, but I wanted to sort of make it a little less bubbles and a little more like fun, just like a background. Not, I'm always thinking of the 49er market backgrounds, so that's what I always feel like I have in my head. Or even Vicky Boutin, because she has some really fun mixed media looking backgrounds as well, which now, fitting enough, she's with 49 Market. So I flipped the stencil over, so now that it's going to give me sort of like a bokeh, where now I'm going to have circles in other spots. And then that I was happy with, because it gave me like a highs and lows kind of look. And then when that was done, I just took my papers and lined them up, made sure they were straight, and I tacked them down with double stick tape. Now that my papers are all stuck down, they're not fully stuck down at the corners in case I wanted to put something underneath them. That I go back with some glue and glue down all the corners when I'm done. But I didn't want them to keep sliding around while I was trying to get the ephemera where I wanted it. So that's how I kind of get around that. I just tack them down enough so they don't slide around. The ephemera I'm using is also from the digital kit. I put them all on one document. I sized them the way that I wanted them. I actually looked at some sticker sheets that I had and saw around what size things were and put these, size these to that, like, you know, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, stuff like that. And then I printed them out and I fussy cut them out. I also used a hole punch, a circle punch, I mean, for some of the circles. I got everything glued down and where I wanted it, I decided to add some enamel dots. And I went through my stash to try to find some colors that I wanted to bring out a little bit more in those little dots. I decided to go with 2 shades of the green, the blue, and then I used black Nuvo Drops to bring out, since there was black very little bit, so I wanted to tie the black all back in with adding some Nuvo Drop black dots. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I had a lot of fun using this digital kit. I really felt less nervous about cutting into things and gluing stuff down because I have a problem with hoarding my stash, and this really is kind of a freeing exercise in that. Now all I have left to do is add the date and some journaling, and my page is finished. Thanks so much for watching. Have a crafty day.